All right.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Charleston Antique Mall. This is our free vintage clothing class, and it's going to be presented by our very own Glam Factory owner, Stephanie. A little couple house rules. Dealers, if you have any walkies, please turn them off. Any customers, we ask you that you silence your cell phones just so we can have a nice recording. And I'm going to turn it over to Stephanie, who's going to teach you all about the awesome and wonderful world of vintage clothing. Thank you all so much for coming.
Hey, thank you. Thanks for coming, everybody. I sure appreciate it. I love sharing my knowledge and my personal experience with vintage clothing with anybody and hopefully inspiring other people to maybe buy, sell, trade their own vintage clothing and stuff and ways to go pick it and that sort of thing. So a little bit about me. I own Glam Factory Vintage Clothing Store downtown. I'm on 3rd in Colorado. I'm the oldest standing vintage clothing store here in town. I've been there 12 years now. And I was telling some folks that were here a little earlier, I've outgrown my building, but I'm not moving. So an awesome way for me to expand was to get my own booth here at Charleston Antique Mall. And I started out in a small case like this with Bakelite jewelry and had really good success and met a lot of nice people, loved it here, grew into a small booth, and in a year or so grew into the big booth that's right behind you. So little by little, that will have more clothing, but it's got lots of accessories right now. My store is a little bit different than all the local shops here. We carry vintage clothing authentic from the 1940s through the 1970s. A lot of other shops carry 80s, 90s, Y2K, and t-shirts. They probably make more money than I do, but it's okay. If that's what they like, that's awesome. But for me, I grew up wearing vintage clothing, and since I was 15, I was selling it one way, trading it. I think I was selling out of the trunk of my car in the 90s. Oh man, I figured it out, and it was just something I always wanted to do. When I was 15, I used to beg this little shop, Word Again Sam, if I could work there. And the lady couldn't hire me. It was a little tiny shop. So she let me sweep her store every weekend for a little store credit. And I told her that someday I was going to have a shop like this. I was going to have this shop. And I went on college, had multiple careers between now and then. And I worked at Wynn for a long time and was a Rolex store manager and all kinds of different things, jewelry and retail, but I always missed vintage clothing. And when I worked there, I had to wear suits, but I only wore 1940s vintage clothing suits because it's just me and who I was. So after working there, I had an amazing opportunity to open my own business. So I sold all my watches, and that was kind of how I was able to fund buying the inventory for my shop. And I had been collecting for years and years. And when my husband met me, I had suitcases lined from the floor to the ceiling, and each suitcase was labeled 50s dresses, 60s dresses, 70s dresses, because I knew someday I was going to have my own shop. And that's the kind of shop I wanted. So that's where I am now. And it's a really magical place. It's an interesting one, and I love sharing it here at the Charleston Antique Mall with everybody. So, rather than teach you guys kind of like the history of vintage clothing, because that can be found. That can be found on Google, that can be found anywhere. I wanted to tell you like some cool identifiers about stuff. So if you're out picking maybe a yard sale or a thrift store or even at the bins, you can just dig and see these cool and notice like, oh, that's a 60s dress or that's a 40s dress. I brought a couple of just interesting pieces at my store from my store that are good sellers or really interesting pieces. People ask me all the time, like, what's selling? Well, you know what? I was telling you about those guys that sell the t-shirts. We joke and call them t-shirt bros. It's a big thing. I don't know anything about the Grateful Dead. It's just not my jam. But something like this, if you look at, you look at the graphics, you look at the label, that's easily found on Grailed. You just take a little picture. You can do the Google lenses, eBay. There's a little camera up there. You can take a picture of it, and then you can find like items and like prices. And honestly, in my brain, I thought, oh, that's a cool $20 t-shirt. I looked it up, did the research, spent 10 minutes of my day having a good look at it. It's a $60 t-shirt. I picked up for 10 bucks somewhere. So that's awesome. I didn't know at the time. I hope just to double my money. So for the t-shirt people, that's just a really cool thing to do, and I'm sure they're a lot more knowledgeable about that than I am. But this was also a really special one. This one, Grateful Dead, if you look at it, you can see the artist, the year. I wrote it on the tag so I wouldn't forget. But it's a long sleeve one from 1984. Thought it was like maybe a $50 shirt, $400 t-shirt. I sold the same shirt in red for $500. I wasn't being cheeky. I looked for comps. I looked on Grailed. I looked on Poshmark and eBay. And because I spent 10 minutes out of my day, I did so good on that one t-shirt. So if anybody needs a 1984 Grateful Dead t-shirt, you know what? We got one. So, and I like to listen to customers too when they come into my store, because they give me knowledge as much as I think I know things. I can talk about a dress that I know, like a 1940s cold rayon, and it's just beautiful. Side metal zip, that was a thing for the 1940s. Believe it or not, the nylon zippers was invented in 1940s, but it wasn't used until the 60s. But that side zip here, that'll be a tell because it's metal, and that, the fabric, you can already see the style. You know, it's really an interesting piece. And let's see. And when folks come into my store and say something to me like, "Hey, I need a 1920s look or something," you wouldn't believe how often people say that to me. But they think maybe the 20s is just is a flapper, and that's cool. They probably want it for a party look or something like that. But I have a few things that this one we had to do some research on. 1920s. There's a picture of a lady standing on the Great Pyramid in a dress exactly like this. I thought it was like maybe $100 item. It's crazy because it's 100 years old. It's linen, it's got the matching dress underneath. The condition's amazing for a 100-year-old piece of clothing. But this one, $250. You wouldn't think, but the tells, there's no metal clasps on it, there's no metal closures. So it's just the fabric, it's just straight cotton. There's no plastics in the fabric at all. So that didn't happen until the 1960s. So plastics, so if you feel a dress and it's got elastic or stretch to it, or even a nylon zipper, definitely 60s. So, and when folks, you know, we get folks here in Vegas. Vegas is a really interesting place, saying, "Hey, I'm going to a 60s party," or "I'm going to a 70s party." I always ask them, because that was a really broad time. You know, are you looking for disco or rock and roll? 60s, Gidget. I always think about TV. Yeah. Very cute, like maybe like a same thing, kind of a little mod look for the 60s. And right here, we still got a metal zipper, so that's earlier in the 60s. It's not quite that psychedelic look. This one too, metal zip. So, and then here, something like this, it'll be 60s, 70s. So it's got that 70s Marsha Brady look. And you can see it's got polyester, it's nylon. So it's getting those plastics in there. Ooh, that's itchy. But here we go, nylon zipper. So a nylon zipper is almost an easy, oh, that's 60s or later, late 60s or 70s, 80s, 90s. Even modern clothing has, you know, plastic nylon zippers and stuff. So a fun one. And here we go, another 70s look. But you can feel it's nylon zipper, and that's kind of an easy tell there. But it just doesn't feel like modern clothing. It just doesn't. Something to it has a silkier feel to it, but it's, you know, 60s, 70s and all that, synthetic fabrics, and that's when stretch and give was in clothing. When you look a lot of 40s, 50s, it was all tailored, and you know, it fits or it doesn't, or you make it fit. So a lot of folks that try on clothing, I always suggest they try on a size or two too big, because there's no give in the clothing, and sometimes they don't realize that a piece like this might be slimmer than we think. So yeah, Let's see. Fun things to look up that I love, and it's a weird thing. I love looking on the Vintage Fashion Guild. I like looking at labels. You can look at labels on men's and women's clothing. A lot of that's so easy to do. You take a quick picture and you start comparing, and it can tell you what years something was made, where it was made, and then you can kind of determine the value by finding comparable items on the different selling websites. So let's see, what else did I bring? I just brought some weird stuff just because I thought it was fun. You know what's one thing that I love that I think is a really interesting thing is what sells in the store is often what's trending on TV. So have you seen the show Palm Royale? Anybody? Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay, Lily Pulitzer. Every single scene has Lily Pulitzer prints and something like that. So I recently came across a dozen pieces and all but one have gone, probably because she's tiny. But because of what's going on TV, this is like a hot item. So, you know, what you see on TV, if you're out picking and you're like, ooh, that's a weird print, you have that look, oh, it's a Lily Pulitzer, you know that's what's happening on TV and that you'll be able to sell that quick and easy. So, what else? Brought some interesting things. More 1940s. 1940s. Can you see Lucille Ball wearing this? Yeah, with those big, elegant pockets, maybe Marlene Dietrich or something cool like that. So, and that's rayon. So, just a pretty, pretty piece. For a little bit of modern stuff that's selling right now in this heat, especially Vegas, we all have pools or access to one or something like that. Tiki stuff, Hawaiian shirts is huge for us right now. Yeah, I think it'll fit you. It's a good one. One thing for me, I resell a lot of Hawaiian shirts. You know what? Some of my pickers get them in the bins. I've got, I have 10 pickers for my store. They pick them in the bins, they get them in estate sales, yard sales, thrift stores. I don't do that because I have a store to run and I got to be there. But it's amazing that over the years I've developed relationships with different folks to pick and just resell to me real easy. When I think of a shirt that I want to sell real easy, I like that the pattern matches on the pocket. Can you see how continuous that is? You don't even know that the pocket's there because that pattern is, you know, to me, well, not just to me, that is a shirt of quality because they took that time to do that. And that's a good sell. That's a good seller. Rain Spooner. That's always an easy one. It doesn't even have to be that old. It can be 90s and it's still a really good seller. So something like that. Something like this we put in the store, but also I sell at Tiki Oasis, one of my very favorite markets. Something like this goes real quick and real easy. So if Hawaiian shirts, dresses, or anything like that is something you guys are interested in selling, you know what? Maybe you go there for going shopping. It's in San Diego, but they have it in Arizona, and there's a lot of events here too. So that's a cool one. Another interesting seller right now for the shop is 90s Western. Oh man, Beyonce did something for Western. So did Orville Peck. The uglier, the better. It's true. I look at these and I'm like, that's hideous. I love it. So, and I don't sell them for a whole lot, but they're quick sellers. The bolder the pattern, the more fun. And it's just kind of a wild thing. I mean, how music influences. This was like Garth Brooks in the 80s. Whew, that was a moment. That was quite a moment. But then it's back again, and it's even cooler now with the modern bands and music that's going on. So I don't know. Is this purple one you? He's like, maybe. It's a good one. So, and you know how I was talking about how music affects, you know, what sells and what's selling and what's hot. Sometimes I come across things like this one was a really interesting one. It's a Pendleton, and I got really lucky and bought a whole collection. And I believe this is the blue one that the Beach Boys wore on that 1967 album. So I didn't know until a customer told me. And I went, oh, we looked it up, and I was like, oh, crap. Well, good, now I know. So, you know, it's kind of cool to chat with folks and find out it's a good 60s flat cut one is just beautiful. But I don't know. Do you guys want to know? What do you want to know? So where to get things, where to get started, places to sell, repairs. Oh, ooh. Well, you know what? I'm a part of a ton of Facebook groups, whether it be Ooh La La 50s, set resales group, men's vintage fashion, Western. Let's see, Western groups and stuff like that. I watch how other people repair in a lot of those. There's a lot of videos on YouTube. I am challenged in that way, but I do have my mom, and we're actually changing the store to where we're going to start doing some repairs there. A long way from now, but we're getting there. Ask your dry cleaner.
Your mom does repairs?
Not for public yet. Yeah. So I have, and I've sold, and I was just thinking about it, and about 3 or 4 years ago, I bought a trash bag full of clothing from someone who was moving and their storage unit, and they offered it to me, and I had a good dig, and I just saw a Western suit in it. I didn't see what was in it. It was a plain black one. It was just a Western jacket, and I bought the whole bag, and I was really excited about it. And I looked inside later, and it was a Nudie Taylor suit, and it was owned by Rex Allen, and he was one of the last Disney singing cowboys. It was really, really a cool piece. I believe it. I listed it in a Western vintage sales group on Facebook. That's what I do. I don't necessarily sell on eBay or Instagram. Other people do. A lot of fees get taken out of that. I buy a lot of stuff there for personal, but I just listed it in a group, and it went quick, and I did really well on that. And I got lucky. That same bag of stuff, 3 women's 3-piece nudie suits. None of them had, and a nudie is a Western suit. These were all 70s ones that I came across. They were just plain ones, which is, that's still a cool thing. It didn't have any of that great chain stitch that we all look for, but those suits are thousands and thousands of dollars. Yeah. So, yeah. Anything else? Hats?
Do you do hats?
I have a few men's hats. Modern men's heads are so much bigger than the vintage ones. I just don't come across them. I think maybe we think more. Yeah? No? I don't know.
Shoes?
I don't do shoes, and I'll tell you why. Here in Vegas, the old shoes, the glues were organic glues, so they were horse glue, and it dries up. In our environment where we live, it dries up. All the glue dies. The first time you take it out dancing, you're going to have a blowout and you're going to be bummed. So here in Vegas, I always recommend a reproduction shoe. My personal favorite, what do I like? Remix. That for me, but that's a 1940s lady shoe. They have good men's dancing shoes too. They're a little pricey, but you know what? They're worth every cent. And I think my pairs last me years and years. Yeah. So yeah, that's a funny thing about Vegas too. One really interesting thing about Vegas right now is that a lot of the showgirls and entertainers, they're all 80, 90 years old, and their stuff's coming available. And so a lot of folks call me, hey, my aunt passed away, we're clearing out her house, you interested in buying? I'll be right there. I mean, the weird thing, we all make a living off of selling dead people's stuff, but it gives it new life. It gives it new life. It goes out and it's seen again, and that's really cool. I mean, something about that is sustainable and interesting. And if something like this can last 100 years, I mean, imagine this guy that's only, oh man, how was the 80s almost 40 years ago? That hurts my feelings, right? But, that'll last. That'll last. So anybody else? Can I tell you about local markets or anything? Or, I was telling a few folks that I went to the Vintage Bazaar here that was 2 weeks ago, a week ago. Wow, time is crazy. But it was amazing. I did some great picking. A lot of vendors here set out cool booths out there. I believe there were vendors from elsewhere out there and bringing in fresh things. And man, if you hear there's a market, a local market, it's worth going to see. I went to the Oasis pop-up market this weekend. That was amazing. That was on Main Street. Market in the Alley is one I like to go through. Me and my little dog go walk around and we go picking there. Sometimes I find things for resale. Sometimes I find things for myself. So yeah. Oh yeah, that's a really good one. The indoor vintage swap meet. Oh yeah, I love that one. Now I'm telling you all my secrets. But yeah, that one's a very cool one. The Fantastic Swap Meets on Decatur and Sahara. And every third week of the month for 3 days, they have vintage vendors there. And that's really cool. It's anything from records to decor. I mean, nobody says that you just have to sell vintage clothing. That's just what I happen to know about. But I find in my booth and in my store, besides having clothing, having things like maybe records or art, that kind of lends to the lifestyle and the whole look, and that even draws in a different person that didn't know they needed that vintage shirt. Yeah. So let's see, what else is a good one? There is the Jamboree that's happening out in Boulder in a couple of weeks. I definitely recommend that one. I'm not endorsed by these people. I just shop there. So, and I recommend you shop there. I mean, there might be cool deals, something like that. But let's see, trying to think for resources for picking for you guys. Thrift stores, estate sales, the bins. I don't do that because that is rough. That is rough. People at bins are like bossy and it's dirty and scary. But you know what? If you're brave and you wear gloves, you can do it. And some things can really be had. One of my pickers picks at bins and she gets all designer stuff for her eBay stores. And when she finds vintage items for me, she sends her husband down to me and he brings me bins. And I just have a good dig and just make an offer on everything. If people bring me things, it's different than I would imagine if you're going picking all day long. But if people bring me things, I'm really good about offering them close to half of what I'd sell it for because they did half the work. And so for me, getting things is really quick and easy. For other things, if you're just picking for you, which is amazing, you can just kind of pick what you love and curate to what you love. And eventually the other folks, you'll meet people that like the same things you like. Maybe everybody you know loves Hawaiian shirts. You can have a whole booth of that. And then besides your Hawaiian shirt, then you got a rack of Hawaiian dresses, then you got tiki mugs and all that sort of thing. And you build like a little scene, and that really is a cool way to, enhance what you're selling and something like that. Yeah.
How's the Ed Hardy or the Christian Audigier wardrobe? How's that sound?
You know what? For me, that's out of my wheelhouse because I cut off at the 70s. So that would be more of like a 90s thing, 90s, 2000, Y2K kind of thing. But I'm pretty sure that's a huge seller for like cool shops like Alt Rebel and Red Cat and Buffalo Exchange. I'm certain those are good sellers for them. I have a different kind of license, so because of the type of things I like to sell, I only have an antiques license. So I'm probably not supposed to sell things quite that modern. I don't want to anyway. But there's nothing wrong with that. Like I said, those people make a killing. I think I sell more 70s, a little bit of 80s, 10 for every one piece of 50s that I sell. So this is really a much smaller market. And I do have events that I sell at, or the events people come to me. Viva Las Vegas is a huge one. Every rockabilly person in town, California, all over the world, they come over to my shop and they know us now. And they tell their friends and friends and friends. And then, the cool thing is my shop's hopping and I send them down here and they come shopping over here too. And it's a pretty cool thing, that word of mouth thing. And building a good reputation. If you decide you want to do a pop-up or something, chat with people. If you sit there and stare at them like a creep, they might buy something, but they won't know you and they won't know your things that you bring, and they won't know like, oh, that's my person that I go to for Hawaiian shirts or whatever it is. So I don't know. I guess for me, that I have kind of a crazy personality or kind of a crazy look, that works for me because I can't hide. I can be in a crowd and people know it's me. So that's kind of cool. I have my thing, my look, it works for me. So, I mean, you don't have to do all that to be a seller. Heck, you can do whatever you want, but it is pretty kind of neat because then you'll be the go-to person for whatever it is you're selling. Instagram has become a really good thing for sales. People sell on TikTok. I don't. I'm just old and I don't know how, but I'll get there. We do like little videos and that sort of thing now. Ruby Lane is nice for like antiques. Am I allowed to say all these names? I've been doing it the whole time. Yeah, okay. Ruby Lane is nice for antiques. eBay. Let's see, what else is cool? Charleston Antique Mall. No, you can't sell here unless you're a vendor, but that's okay. You can buy here. We all have cool stuff. Yeah, but I do send people here all the time because we have cool vintage clothing. This is my booth behind you, but not just me. I mean, there's a lot of booths in here with really good men's stuff, women's stuff. I think there might even be some kids stuff somewhere, but I haven't had a look for that. But the accessories here, sometimes vintage clothing doesn't fit everyone. And sometimes you can do something like buy a retro look. You can buy a modern made dress that has a good 50s look, but then you can accessorize with cute 50s authentic jewelry or something, and it gives it a good look. Even guys, you can wear that good belt with a modern suit, and that gives it a good 50s, 60s look or something like that. I'm all over the place today. Yeah.
What about when you buy the rock or musician t-shirt that has the doors on it and their concert with their 1973 concert tour date on it?
Ooh, I start researching and see what I can get for it.
Okay.
I start looking for
I collect a lot. I have a lot of like Beatles and Doors and Queen.
that is awesome.
And I usually rhinestone. What happens if you
Oh.
rhinestone?
I think it just depends on your customer. I think you have a much wider audience if you don't. You can sell it to anybody and they can wear it any kind of way they want. If you do that, maybe you have a rock star customer who will pay the money for that sort of thing. I find a lot of people want the original the way it is. But you know what? If I find one and it's bedazzled and I put the right price on it, it'll still sell. Just perhaps not for as much as it could have.
Okay.
Yeah,
So it's better to not be dazzled.
probably not. Yes. But something like that, you can definitely look up on eBay or Grailed and find a like item and see what they go for. And often I will price something a little less in my brick and mortar store or here than what it's listed for to entice people to, buy what's in their hands right now and what they're seeing and they're liking. So, yeah. But that's a good question. How interesting, because people do want a fancy thing that they do themselves and custom sort of thing.
Right. And I cut the sleeves and the collar and stuff like that.
Okay.
Find out what it's worth before you do that.
Yeah.
They're using, oh, these are only selling for $5 or $10 or $15.
Absolutely.
Cut up.
Absolutely.
But if you go in there after you've done all this and you find out it was a $500 t-shirt, had you not touched it, you're going to be sick.
Yeah. Do the research before you go crazy on it.
But I've usually bought them like at Macy's or I bought
Okay, so
you know,
you're
wait, they're
so
not-
you're buying a
they're not
modern made.
vintage.
That's
Like,
totally
they're
cool.
like made to look vintage.
Oh, okay.
But they're not like out of somebody's garage sale.
Well, then the funny thing is, if it's a modern one that you customize, you probably did even bring the value up. The funny thing with that, now if you take a vintage one from 1985 and you do that too, you might have heard it.
Right.
Okay, you totally heard it.
I've done at estate sales, the vintage ones are pretty ratted out. They're holy or
Buy them,
really
buy them,
pretty ratted out.
buy them, because if you're getting them for cheap, you can still do well on them. I mean, price does reflect condition, but you never know. I bought a Scorpions t-shirt from, was it Scorpions? No, it was Dio from like the Holy Diver tour in 1980 something, and it was pretty beat up. And I had it in my store. I looked up the going price, and I think I paid $20 for it and sold it for like $500 to one of my Japanese customers.
Yeah,
So, you know what? I looked about what it was going for. Um, I had a little room on it, and they're gonna sell it. They sold it in Tokyo for way more, because then I followed them on Instagram to see what they're listing, and they listed my shirt and sold it for 8.
Did you
So,
bedazzle it?
no, I did not bedazzle it. I did not. I did not. Um, you know what? You might want to go through your parents' stuff too. Your parents' stuff, maybe the old stuff you wore in the 70s. Contact your local vintage shop, see if they're buying. You can do that. Yard sales, estate sales. I mean, you can all do that too. Those are certainly good ways to sell things. Are you more interested in how to pick up things or how to sell things? How to own things? Oh, well, I don't know that I can help you with that. How to sell? Yeah, I mean, the catch with selling online for me is that I normally sell in a specific group, because then I know everybody in that group wants it. It's just a matter of the price and the size. The big problem with selling is you take a picture of it, probably on a mannequin or a model, then you got to measure it, 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 and then you have to list every detail, flaw, and that sort of thing. So for a shop that has thousands of pieces, for me to stop and spend an hour measuring, listing, well, it depends. I mean, it would be worth it if I sold that $500 shirt. Really?
Yeah, I just put a picture on it and tell it's beautiful, lovely, to fit you perfectly.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 they buy it.
Okay. You're a lucky duck. Man, I guess I just have picky buyers. Because I want to know all those things if I'm spending my money on it.
Well,
But
sometimes they'll ask for measurements and I'll go back and put a measurement on it.
fair enough. And then you just put it on the listing.
Kind of measuring, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Bust, waist, hips, shoulder to hem. Oh, yeah.
Jewelry, everything.
Yeah. Well,
Everything on it.
the funny thing about vintage clothing is the sizing is very different than modern clothing. In a modern dress, I probably wear a 16, 18, and in vintage dress, I wear a 21 and a half, 22. My best guess is that 22 would be across the chest. So that's how they measured things. So when you're listing vintage clothing, you definitely want to list that. And even for the modern guys' t-shirts that are selling online, it says a 2X, but really you still, if you're asking $500 and you want it, you better have those measurements for those guys. So, and they're picky and they know their thing. They know everything about that shirt, way more
A
than
lot
me.
of those people, though, they resell what they get.
Sure,
They resell.
good for them.
A lot of people that I'm selling to, they wear it or they want it for themselves.
That's cool. I do both. I have
Yeah,
customers
yeah,
that do
yeah,
both.
yeah.
I think eventually we all could, yeah. But I don't know what else we got.
I do have a question, like
Yeah.
union labels and stuff. When did those start? And
Ooh, I have seen union labels and stuff as late as the 70s. So that, and I've seen it as early as stuff from the 1940s. I don't really deal too much with clothes much older than that. I do have some Victorian pieces in my store. And those have no labels and no metal, all buttons and that sort of thing, which is interesting because no zippers or any of that. But I want to say 40s to 70s is my experience with the stuff that I see in my store. Good question. Thank you. Yeah.
how do you wear vintage clothing?
How do I wear vintage?
How do I know which, like, if I'm wearing like a 40s and 50s item, how would I know, like, if it's on my left or on my right, things like that?
Yeah. Well, an interesting thing, and I actually just read it because I was reading about zippers the other day. I had a weird talk about somebody with somebody about zippers. Women's zippers were on the left because traditionally they were assisted in being dressed by a maid or somebody. Men's stuff zips on from the right because men are right-handed and they assumed that they would dress themselves. So I just, okay, she wears her clothing backwards all the time. So it's a funny thing. I happen to know her. So there are tells. Your pockets will go one way, not the other way. Yeah, that's a thing. So yeah, that's that sort of thing. If it's a back button blouse, like a 40s or 50s blouse, there will be darts this way, and then the buttons are in the back. If you decide to wear it the other way, the buttons are in the front, but then you got a big hump on your back because you wear it backwards. That's okay. I used to wear my clothes backwards when I was younger. It's a thing. So cool. How we doing? Any more questions? Any more? I don't know what our time is like, but oh, I have time. Ooh. What kind of vintage clothing are you wearing? How about you, sir? Yeah. You're not a vintage clothing guy. Is it for you that you came? Just out of curiosity to know about the class? Yeah. You do? You wear vintage
Yeah, I
clothing?
wear some.
Very cool. What kind of vintage clothing are you wearing these
I've got
days?
some suits.
Nice.
Some jackets, shirts, and just little stuff that I find here and there.
And you live here in Vegas?
Yeah, I live in Oak City. It's
You-
hard to fit in them though.
You know, suits are a tricky thing. I don't sell a whole lot of suits at my store because a lot of guys in the 60s and 70s playing cards at our tables were smoking, and then they have burn holes in their pants.
How do you think
That I don't even buy them. I don't even buy them. I'll buy it for a blazer or something. One of my favorite blazers that was that I picked up here was I think it was a Jackman's of Las Vegas. I love a Las Vegas tag. I always think that's really special. I believe they were in the Sahara. So it's not particularly super valuable, but when you live somewhere, something local with a local label is really just a little bit of a special thing. Yeah. Anybody else wearing vintage clothing or aspire to wear vintage clothing? You're wearing good inspired vintage clothing. That's beautiful. Yeah.
Actually, that's from my daughter.
Oh, is it? How cool. How awesome. It's multi-generational.
You know, some, if they don't want it, they give it to me, and I just take it here.
Well, you look very elegant. And that one is like, it's a 40s, 50s style. It's got like a little 40s cuff, but then that 50s fit and flare. But you know what? You look beautiful today in a modern look.
Also from like Disney store.
Oh,
Yeah, but you know, kids like just like that. Yeah, I think she got it for the party. After party, they don't want it.
that's all right. You look elegant in it. I say you hang on to it.
Yeah, then when they give to me, then I will try to match a shoe, clothes. Yeah.
Very
I
cool.
have some vintage purse
Oh.
handbag from my mom.
Did you see the front vendor, Fancy Nancy? She's got the vintage purses, the best. Oh, you saw it.
I got her some hat.
Oh, did you? Very nice. Very cool. Cool. Is anybody else wearing vintage clothing? Maybe your kids do, or no? We're just all want to resell it, huh? How about you?
I'm Chelsea's mother, Stephanie.
What's
I
up?
met you before.
Oh,
so-
you have.
Yeah,
Oh
so
my goodness.
I have her vintage clothes hanging in my closet in my house because she doesn't have room. But like you said, when you start gaining a little bit weight after you're 40, those vintage clothes she was wearing at Viva 8 years ago don't fit her. Well, Mom, we can't just get rid of them.
No.
I'm going, but there's a closet taking them room. So maybe you should talk to her.
Maybe I should. Maybe I should. I mean, the amazing thing is those things that people are wearing 40s, 50s, 60s, that stuff is 60, 70, 80 years old and in still wearable condition. A lot of times I'll go to a thrift store and it's amazing to me to see how much, I don't even want to say the names of the brands, but just like how much of these modern brands, you'll see 50 pieces of the Lululemon or something like that. And I mean, I'm guessing for resale that might be good if you're selling more modern items. But man, just for the environment alone, it kind of hurts my feelings to see that stuff. You know, I don't know, and it's just discarded. I mean, this stuff, a lot of times, if it comes to me, it was treated precious or worn on special occasions. And then it's cool that it goes out again and is worn that way again. But I'm a monkey. I'll wear it every day. And I don't even realize I'm crazy looking until I go to the grocery store or come here. And I'm like, oh. So, but one cool thing we were talking about with the vintage clothing, just adding an accessory to anything gives it that cool vintage look. I mean, nobody says you have to wear vintage clothing every single item. Sometimes that even gets a little costumey. So, but I do, but that's just
I
me.
know I like the 80s because it's a lot cheaper than 50s and 40s, but they do a lot of 80s does 40s.
Absolutely,
Style it with
absolutely.
40s accessories and give yourself a 40s look without the price tag.
You sure can, and then you can jump and dance in that and sweat in it and not like feel like, oh crap, I'm wrecking an 80-year-old piece of clothing. Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. Ava back there, she does a lot of 70s, does 40s, so and she always looks cute. Always does. You get a ton of compliments, huh?
Yeah.
Yep, all the time.
I constantly get stopped on campus, like, where'd you get it from? I'm just constantly handing out your business card. You're wearing your mom white stuff.
I should employ you. Cool. On the little business cards that we passed out, there's a little $5 coupon. You can come visit the shop someday. If you're down in the Arts District, we're over by the Stratosphere. We have our own little parking lot. Where I am located on 3rd and Colorado, Rockin' Betty's there. They do awesome reproduction. So they do modern made but 50s look. One corner up from me is our good friends, the Red Cat. They do anything, a little bit of 40s, 50s, all the way to a lot of Y2K kind of stuff. Buffalo Exchanges there, Alt Rebels there. There's a lot of little shops that have popped up that I haven't seen. And the funny thing is, part of me having my little shop here, I actually work here too a couple days a month, and I see them all here. I see all those shop owners here shopping and picking too. So, I mean, if you want to know where the pros get their things, they dig around in here. So.
Do you still at your store every day to get stuff and somebody bring their stuff?
Tuesday through Saturday, I ask people to make an appointment with me.
Okay.
I do take care of an older mom who has health problems, so I'm not always like easily available, but
'Cause I've popped in your store a few times.
yeah. Yeah. Did you meet the cat?
Yes.
Everybody loves Honey. She's the best.
And your mother.
And my mom. Mom's good too.
Construction cleared out?
The construction's not cleared out, and it's actually even going to get tougher.
Oh, really?
So they're going to dig up the whole street in front of my store. We still have the parking lot. If things get too wild, I'll move it all here and say, and we're going to renovate that shop anyway. And while it's here, I can say, come to our second location. That just means this shop will even be cooler while we renovate. And when we renovate, we'll do a big deal and move kind of back into that shop. So
Can't buy stuff here.
I cannot buy stuff here. No, you got to call me. So, but you have my card now, and you can find me on anywhere. I can't hide. So, yeah, you can find me all over the internet. Cool. And you know what? And other people here, I believe Gabby, she works at another place. She sees me shopping. So, I mean, check your antique malls. See what's happening at the antique malls. If you're looking for like prices, you're like, oh, I got my grandma's cookie jar or my grandma's old dress. Cruise through the antique malls. As a little kid, that was a thing with my mom. We'd go wandering around and see the price of something, and then we'd see it in a thrift store and know that, ooh, that's $100 item or something like that. So, seeing what other people are selling, eBay, your comps there, your comps here. I mean, it's kind of neat. It's a really neat thing, and vintage clothing is pretty vast, way more vast than just my little thing that I like. Other people, they sell thousands of blue jeans. That's a whole other big culture. I actually am not very knowledgeable on jeans. So,
That's what I'm wearing today.
oh, blue jeans, yeah. Vintage jeans. Vintage jeans, you gotta know. There's a lot to know about that sort of thing. It's not my thing. but that's also what separates me from just some of the shops just a block away from me, because I'm just not that person. But you know what? If you want something fancy, I probably got it or know about it and can figure it out for you. So, wow, you guys, you're so awesome. I mean, anything more I can answer? No? Let's shop? Yes? Yeah? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. All right. Go shopping.